The atmosphere around you is not empty. It is a living record, a conscious field that has been quietly observing your every breath, every silent tear swallowed before it could fall, and every decision you made when no applause followed and no witness stood nearby. What most people misunderstand is the nature of an investigation. They imagine something invasive, cold, or punitive. Yet the examination that unfolded around your life was not designed to condemn, but to confirm. It was a divine process of verification, a careful gathering of evidence to determine whether your spirit could sustain the frequency required for the era now unfolding. For years, perhaps decades, you moved through life with the persistent sensation of being out of phase with the world, as though the rules everyone else followed were written in a language you were never meant to speak. Opportunities appeared and vanished without explanation. Doors opened only to pause halfway. This was not rejection, it was restraint. The spiritual realm placed a deliberate hold on your forward momentum until every detail of your becoming had been accounted for. Picture, if you can, a vast and silent hall, not built for judgment but for recognition, where no accusation echoes and no defense is required. One by one, the experiences of your life were called forward to testify. The betrayals you never received closure for. The relationships that dissolved without warning. The nights when isolation pressed so heavily on your chest that even prayer felt like effort. None of these moments were summoned to expose weakness. They were called to reveal substance. They spoke of how you continued to move with integrity even when bitterness would have been easier. They spoke of the way your light adapted rather than extinguished itself, dimming only long enough to protect its core. This was a full audit of your inner alignment, not measured by public success, social approval, or external morality, but by resonance, by whether your inner truth remained coherent under pressure. Even the smallest details were invited to speak. The ground you walked on during your lowest seasons, the unnoticed acts of kindness you offered when nothing could be gained, and the adversaries who unknowingly sharpened your discernment. Each witness echoed the same conclusion. You're not merely someone passing through a spiritual awakening. You are a stabilizing signal, intentionally positioned within a field of noise. Where chaos accelerates, you slow the current. Where fear amplifies, you bring coherence. This is why the delays were necessary, why the isolation felt so precise, and why your path refused to mirror anyone else's. The testimony is complete now. The clearance has been granted. What you are feeling is not imagination, but transition. As this revelation unfolds, do not rush to analyze it. Let your body register the safety of being fully seen. Let the tension you've carried as armor finally loosen. You are no longer under review. You are recognized, aligned, and prepared to step forward as yourself, without explanation, without apology, and without doubt. Point 1. The witness of the atmosphere and physical space. The first witness to take the stand in this investigation was the very air that surrounds you, the unseen but ever-present medium that records everything without bias or emotion. In the realm of the spirit, there exists a principle known as atmospheric authority, a law that operates whether one believes in it or not. Every human being emits a frequency shaped by their inner state. But a chosen one emits something far denser, something with gravity. It is not noise, not force, but weight. The witnesses called were the physical spaces you have occupied throughout your life, the rooms you entered quietly, the offices where your presence altered the mood without a word spoken, and the homes where your sleep seemed to calm the walls themselves. Each testified to the same phenomenon. When you enter a space, the invisible static of unresolved emotion begins to reorganize. The molecular tension that hangs in the air starts to settle, not because you try to fix anything, but because order recognizes order. This is why public environments drain you so deeply. You are not merely present. You are unconsciously filtering the emotional and spiritual debris of everyone around you, acting as a living purifier without consent or instruction. The investigation revealed that you function as a natural lightning rod. When tension builds in a room, when anxiety, resentment, or unspoken conflict begins to crackle beneath the surface, it is drawn toward you. Not because you generate chaos, but because your spirit is grounded enough to absorb and neutralize it. Energy seeks resolution, and in your presence, resolution becomes possible. The witnesses were precise in their language. They described a phenomenon of territorial grace. Even during your lowest seasons, when your own inner world felt fractured or uncertain, the environment around you maintained an unnatural order. Arguments softened, conversations slowed. People regulated themselves without knowing why. The official statement was simple and final. This soul does not merely occupy space, it sanctifies it. Further testimony revealed behavioral reactions from others that initially appeared contradictory. Some individuals felt an irresistible urge to confess, to unload secrets they had carried for years, and to speak truths they had never planned to reveal. Others experienced a sudden, irrational irritation, even hostility, without any provocation. The investigation clarified this paradox. The atmosphere reacts to light differently depending on what it encounters within a person. Those aligned with truth feel relief. Those hiding from it feel exposed. The space itself confirmed that you carry what was described as a sovereign scent, a frequency of truth that destabilizes illusion. Wherever you go, facades weaken, masks loosen, and unspoken realities rise to the surface. This is not judgment, it is exposure. You are a walking transparency, a living mirror that reflects what already exists, but prefers to remain unseen. The physical world itself submitted its final testimony, confirming that it recognized your authority long before people consciously did. Doors open without explanation, paths clear unexpectedly. Resistance forms where deception thrives. You were never meant to dominate a room through volume or force. Your authority is atmospheric, silent, and undeniable. You do not announce yourself. The air does it for you. Point 2, the witness of the innocent and the natural world. The investigation then turned to the witnesses who cannot speak in human tongues, the animals, the children, and the ancient elements of nature themselves. In spiritual jurisprudence, the testimony of the innocent is regarded as the most accurate form of truth because it is untouched by ego, fear, social conditioning, or hidden agendas. These witnesses do not analyze, calculate, or pretend. They simply, and every witness from this category delivered the same unshakable statement. They recognized the original signature within you. This signature is not something learned, acquired, or performed. It is the energetic imprint of your soul before it was shaped by the world, before it learned defense, adaptation, or restraint. Children who still stand with one foot in the unseen realm and one foot in this world often pause in your presence without knowing why. They stare, not out of rudeness or curiosity, but out of remembrance. Their eyes linger because they are not observing your physical features. They are perceiving the quiet radiance of your spirit. To them, you feel familiar in a way that bypasses memory. You do not trigger excitement or fear in them, but a soft recognition, as if they are encountering someone they knew before language was required. This response cannot be trained, coerced, or manipulated. It emerges only when the soul they sense is genuine. The witnesses of the animal kingdom echoed this testimony with remarkable consistency. Animals whose survival depends on instantaneous energetic assessment identified in you what can only be described as predator-less energy. This does not mean weakness or passivity. It means the absence of hunger, domination, or threat. In your presence, guarded creatures experience a brief suspension of vigilance. Nervous systems soften, movements slow, eyes remain open but unalarmed. Animals respond to what you, not what you intend to be. They testified that your presence does not seek control, ownership, or advantage. It's simply, even the ancient elements were summoned to speak. The trees beneath which you have rested, the ground that has carried your weight, the waters that have reflected your stillness, were called forward as witnesses. They testified that you do not take from the earth unconsciously. You do not arrive with extraction in your energy. Instead, you enter into communion. When you sit with nature, you listen more than you claim. You observe without imposing narrative. You leave without depletion. This distinction is rare. The elements noted that while much of humanity approaches nature with entitlement, conquest, or indifference, your energy aligns with reciprocity. You meet the world as a living presence, not a resource. This testimony proved something essential. It proved alignment with the natural laws of the Creator, laws that govern balance, respect, and mutual recognition. While the world rushes to dominate, categorize, and exploit, you are found guilty of loving quietly, listening deeply, and protecting through attention alone. Your stillness was entered into evidence. Your restraint was documented. Your reverence was undeniable. When the innocent witnesses concluded their testimony, there was no debate, no dissent, no contradiction. The verdict was delivered without hesitation and without emotion because truth does not require force. It simply stands. The verdict from the innocent was unanimous and final. This spirit is a friend of the life force. Point 3, the witness of the silent trials and unseen tears. The third stage of the investigation moved quietly, deliberately, into the private chambers of your life. The unguarded hours, when the world was no longer watching, and there was no audience to impress, no reputation to defend, and no role to perform. This was not an examination of what you showed others, but of who you were when the doors were closed and the noise fell away. The witnesses here were not people, but places and objects that cannot lie. The walls of your bedroom that absorbed your thoughts at night. The steering wheel that felt the tension in your grip during long, silent drives, and the pillows that caught tears you never explained to anyone. These witnesses testified not to dramatic gestures, but to something far rarer, your unobserved character. Most people behave well when they are seen, when approval or consequence is at stake, but a chosen one is tested in the absolute dark, where no reward is guaranteed and no punishment is visible. The testimony spoke of moments when you were wounded and still chose restraint, when someone cut you deeply and you resisted the urge to harden your heart. It recalled times when kindness would have been easier to withhold, when silence would have been justified. Yet you chose compassion, not because it was praised, but because anything else felt like a betrayal of your inner order. The investigation revealed moments when shortcuts presented themselves clearly, opportunities to lie without detection, to bend truth for personal gain, and to take revenge that would have felt momentarily satisfying. In each instance, the witnesses confirmed the same pattern. You stepped away, not out of fear of being exposed, not out of moral performance, but because your spirit could not tolerate the heaviness that follows a lower choice. You understood instinctively that some victories cost too much internally, even if they look like wins on the outside. The record showed that your most meaningful triumphs were never shared, never documented, never applauded. They were internal decisions made in seconds that quietly shaped the trajectory of your life. The investigation further highlighted your sober-mindedness during periods of intense emotional pressure, noting that this was not emotional numbness or suppression, but a refined form of self-mastery. You felt deeply, sometimes painfully so, yet you did not allow your emotions to commandeer your actions or distort your values. While others collapsed under the weight of their reactions, you learned to sit with discomfort, to observe it, and to extract understanding from it rather than chaos. This capacity marked you as what the investigation termed a reliable steward of suffering. You do not squander pain through bitterness, impulsive destruction, or projection onto others. Instead, you metabolize it. You allow it to soften you without breaking you, to deepen your empathy without eroding your boundaries. The witnesses testified that each hardship expanded your internal bandwidth, making you more patient with human weakness and more discerning with your own. You did not romanticize suffering, nor did you rush to escape it. You used it as a refining fire, letting it burn away illusions, entitlement, and reactive patterns. By the end of this stage, every witness delivered the same conclusion without contradiction. Your integrity is not situational, not performative, and not dependent on recognition. It is structural. It exists whether anyone is watching or not. In the quietest places of your life, where excuses are easiest and standards usually dissolve, you remained aligned. This consistency, unseen by most, is precisely what qualified you. Point 4, the witness of the adversary and the shadow. Perhaps the most surprising witnesses called in this divine investigation were not your allies, not those who praised you, but those who once intended to do you harm. In a process governed by spiritual law, even the shadow is compelled to tell the truth. Those who whispered your name in contempt, those who attempted to obstruct your progress behind closed doors, those who projected doubt, fear, and confusion into your path, and even the unseen forces that sought to cloud your discernment were all summoned to testify. And when they were placed under the weight of truth, their testimonies aligned in a way none of them expected. One by one, they were forced to admit the same conclusion. We could not find a hook in them. In spiritual language, a hook is an unresolved opening, a fracture in the soul where bitterness, resentment, ego, or hidden malice allows darkness to attach itself and gain leverage. It is the quiet wound that reacts when pressed, the emotional scar that can be manipulated. But the witnesses confessed that no such entry point existed within you. They testified that every dart they launched, every insult, every lie, every energetic attack, every attempt to provoke a reaction either fell harmlessly to the ground or was transmuted by your awareness into wisdom. What was meant to weaken you instead refined you. What was meant to distract you sharpened your clarity. They admitted that they studied you closely, dissected your patterns, observed your silences, and searched meticulously for a vulnerability they could exploit. Yet the deeper they looked, the more they encountered layers of resilience, self-mastery, and quiet discipline. Each attempt to destabilize you only revealed a more fortified inner structure. This is what they ultimately described as your divine insulation, a state of being so internally aligned that external chaos cannot penetrate your core. They confessed that your peace could not be disrupted, only observed from the outside. This is also why your presence unsettled them. They could not understand how someone could move through pressure without bitterness, through opposition without obsession, and through injustice without becoming consumed by it. Their fixation on you was not admiration nor hatred alone, but confusion born from limitation. They were witnessing a frequency they could not imitate, a way of operating that did not rely on manipulation, validation, or reaction. The investigation revealed that you are unmanipulatable. You are not governed by applause or intimidation. You do not adjust your integrity to suit the comfort of others, nor do you surrender your direction to public opinion or fear-based threats. You respond, not react. You observe, not absorb. And this is what ultimately dismantled every strategy formed against you. The witnesses of the shadow concluded their testimony with a statement that sealed the case. This soul belongs to a jurisdiction we cannot penetrate. In other words, your inner authority does not answer to their systems. Your spirit is not accessible through guilt, fear, or provocation. You are governed by a higher law, one rooted in self-awareness, alignment, and truth. This is why attempts to control you failed, why efforts to derail you backfired, and why silence often became your most powerful defense. The investigation did not merely clear you of accusation, it established your position. You were proven sovereign, intact, and immune to corruption, not because you fought the darkness, but because you outgrew the conditions that allowed it access. And in that verdict, your freedom was affirmed, your path protected, and your authority quietly restored. Point 5. The witness of the ancestral lineage. The investigation then traveled back through time, moving beyond your present life and into the deeper chambers of memory, where blood remembers what the mind was never told. It called upon the spirits of your ancestors, the men and women whose choices, wounds, sacrifices, and unfinished lessons quietly shaped the terrain you were born into. They were asked to testify on a single matter: how you have handled the inheritance of the soul. This inheritance was never about money or land, it was about patterns. This is a lesser-known spiritual truth. Every individual carries unresolved emotional, psychological, and spiritual patterns from as many as 7 generations behind them. These patterns live in nervous systems, coping mechanisms, fears, addiction silences, and survival strategies passed down unconsciously. When the ancestral witnesses were summoned, they did not speak with judgment. They spoke with emotion. They testified that something rare happened when you arrived. They said you were the one who felt the weight without being told its origin. You carried sadness that was not fully yours, responsibility that arrived too early, and awareness that seemed disproportionate to your age. They testified that you are the cycle breaker. They spoke of addictions that once numbed pain because no one knew how to face it directly, and how you chose awareness instead of escape. They spoke of generations trained to stay silent for safety, and how you learned often painfully, to speak truth even when your voice shook. They spoke of inherited fear around scarcity, abandonment, and failure, and how you refused to let those fears dictate the architecture of your inner life. They testified that you absorbed the heat of unresolved family karma. You felt it as pressure, confusion, loneliness, and resistance from those who could not understand why you were different. Yet instead of passing that heat forward, you stayed present with it. Through introspection, self-discipline, spiritual inquiry, and painful honesty, you cooled it into wisdom. They testified that you became the one willing to sit with discomfort long enough for it to transform. Every witness in your bloodline repeated the same truth. You carried light into places they were never able to enter, not because they were weak, but because survival demanded compromise. You arrived at a time when consciousness could finally do what endurance alone could not. They testified that your life has functioned as a redemptive bridge, connecting what was wounded with what can now be healed. You did not erase the past, you metabolized it. Because of your choices, the emotional climate of your lineage has shifted. The generations that come after you will breathe a different, cleaner air. They will inherit nervous systems that know regulation instead of chaos, identity instead of shame, and choice instead of compulsion. The investigation confirmed that your struggles were never random, and your sensitivity was never a flaw. You were not here merely to succeed in conventional terms. You were here to end something ancient and begin something new. You are not just living for yourself. You are the fulfillment of an ancestral prayer spoken in moments of exhaustion, despair, and hope across time. Your presence answered a question your lineage had been asking for centuries. What would it look like if someone finally chose healing over repetition? Point 6, the witness of the night seasons. The sixth witness was the spirit of the night, the quiet, ancient presence that stood as the embodiment of your longest seasons of inner cold. Those stretches often called spiritual winter, the dark night of the soul, and the months or years where meaning seemed to thin and the voice of the Creator felt impossibly distant. This witness spoke without accusation, without drama, only with precise truth. It testified that during these nights, you felt unseen, unheard, and at times utterly forgotten, as if your name had slipped from the cosmic ledger. Yet the investigation revealed a deeper reality hidden beneath the surface of despair. These periods were not evidence of abandonment. They were periods of incubation. While the world above appeared frozen, something essential was forming beneath the soil of your consciousness. The spirit of the night revealed that when all outer structures fell away, certainty, clarity, reassurance, you were left with nothing but raw faith, and remarkably, that faith endured. Even when you could not see the sun, you never denied its existence. Even when warmth disappeared, you did not conclude that warmth was a lie. This was the testimony that mattered most. The witness spoke of your blind faith, not as ignorance, but as the highest form of spiritual currency, the kind that requires no reward, no proof, and no immediate relief. It testified that in your deepest depression, when thought itself felt heavy, and in your most profound confusion, when prayer became fragmented and language collapsed, you still found the strength to whisper something sacred into the darkness. Sometimes it was a quiet thank you, offered without understanding. Sometimes it was a broken help me, spoken with no confidence that help would arrive. Yet the spirit of the night confirmed that those whispers echoed louder than triumphant declarations ever could. They proved that your spirituality was not dependent on emotional highs, external signs, or constant reassurance. It was not a fair-weather devotion that thrives only under clear skies. It was a foundation sunk deep into bedrock, unshakable, precisely because it was tested in the absence of light. The witness testified that when joy disappeared, belief remained. When answers vanished, trust stayed alive. When guidance went silent, your orientation toward the light did not change. It declared with unmistakable certainty, "This soul does not require external illumination to navigate reality. They have learned to generate light from within." The investigation further noted a rare transformation that occurred during these nights. You became comfortable in the unknown. You stopped demanding immediate explanations from existence. You learned to breathe inside uncertainty without panic, to stand in mystery without collapsing into fear. This comfort was not passive resignation, it was earned composure. It marked the moment you stopped mistaking clarity for truth and began understanding that truth often grows in darkness first. The spirit of the night concluded its testimony by stating that those who survive spiritual winter without abandoning the light emerge with something irreversible, a quiet authority, a deep stillness, and an internal compass that cannot be shattered by loss, silence, or delay. This, the investigation confirmed, is the unmistakable hallmark of a true spiritual master. Point 7, the witness of the final alignment. The final witness was your own higher self, the eternal observing intelligence within you that has always existed in quiet proximity to the divine, untouched by fear, untouched by doubt, untouched by the noise of the world. This witness did not speak emotionally, nor did it defend you with passion. It spoke with calm, undeniable certainty, because truth does not need force. It tied every testimony together and confirmed what had already been silently known. You have successfully passed the period of observation. This was not a symbolic phase nor a poetic metaphor. It was a measured interval in which your reactions, your restraint, your integrity, and your inner sobriety were examined while you moved through a world intoxicated by chaos, ego, distraction, and false urgency. You were observed in moments where retaliation would have been easy, where bitterness would have been justified, and where surrendering your values would have brought short-term relief. Yet again and again, you chose awareness over impulse, patience over reaction, and silence over spectacle. The higher self testified that you remained sober in environments designed to sedate consciousness, that you did not abandon your essence even when isolation tested your resolve, and that you continued to refine yourself even when no one was applauding. This testimony sealed the confirmation that you are now in final alignment. Final alignment does not mean perfection, nor does it mean the absence of challenge. It means the closing of the gap between who you are in the physical world and who you were always meant to be in purpose. It means your thoughts, actions, intuition, and direction are now beginning to operate as a single current instead of fragmented streams. This is why clarity has begun replacing confusion, why certain doors are opening without resistance, and why other doors are closing without regret. Every witness, seen and unseen, concluded with the same phrase, not as encouragement, but as a declaration. They are ready. Ready does not mean eager, it means capable. Ready means tested, reinforced, and internally stable. The investigation ended not because time expired, but because certainty was reached. The verdict was absolute. You are a certified vessel, This designation is not about status or elevation above others. It is about capacity. It means you have demonstrated the ability to hold responsibility without corruption, influence without ego inflation, and power without forgetting compassion. This is why changes are accelerating in your life now, sometimes faster than your mind can fully process. The delays you once interpreted as obstacles were not punishments. They were safeguards. They existed to ensure that when momentum arrived, it would not overwhelm you or distort you. Now those delays are lifting because you have been proven under pressure. You were evaluated not during your victories, but during your restraint, your solitude, your unanswered prayers, and your quiet endurance. The investigation revealed that you can be trusted with expansion because you did not demand it prematurely, that you can be trusted with visibility because you learned how to stand alone, and that you can be trusted with healing grace because you first learned how to heal yourself without becoming hardened. This is why external validation is no longer required. You may notice that praise feels lighter, criticism feels less personal, and comparison feels irrelevant. That is not detachment, that is authentication. The universe itself has already signed the document of your legitimacy. You are no longer auditioning, explaining, or proving. You are simply moving into position. What flows through you next is not meant to inflate you, but to move through you, cleanly, accurately, and without distortion. Walk forward with steadiness, not urgency. The investigation is complete. The authority has been granted. The alignment is active. You are ready, and the path ahead recognizes you as such. In conclusion, dear friend, let this realization wash over you like a gentle rain. You have been through a full investigation, and you have emerged not just innocent, but anointed. The witnesses have spoken, and their testimony is your shield. You can walk now with a new kind of confidence, a quiet, humble, and sober confidence that comes from knowing you are in total alignment with the truth. The path before you is clear. The witnesses are now your guardians. Go forth in peace, for the investigation is complete, and your new life is beginning. Be still, be whole. You are home.